Hey there guys, NordicWarrior here, welcome back to my movie review series. So, you guys that have been following my movie review series will know that occasionally I just review the most random ass movies, totally out of left field. So today I'm going to be reviewing a movie that came out, I believe back in 2006 if I remember rightly, which I watched for the second time recently, and it is a movie called Stay Alive. Now, this movie really went under the radar when it came out. I actually do remember hearing about it back when it came out, but I didn't see the movie until many years later. I came across it on TV a few years back. I watched it a couple of times, and then I figured out that my partner had the movie on DVD, and we ended up watching it, and we watched it again recently a couple of years after first watching it. So it's a movie that I've seen twice now, and it's it's a weird one because if you look at this movie, the concept of this movie is a very interesting one. Now, if you're a gamer, right, if you like to play video games, one of the things that's kind of a cliche about video games is that you will die and then you'll respawn. Well, the concept of this movie is basically the idea that what if there was a video game where if you died in the video game, you would die in real life too. And I'm sure that any gamer has probably thought of that at some point, like, wow, what if there was a game where that would happen? So it's a very simple concept, and it's a concept that's fairly interesting. Like, you could actually do some good things with a concept like that. I could actually think of a lot of ideas for a movie surrounding that concept that could actually work. You could actually make a pretty decent horror movie out of it. Unfortunately though, the execution here is pretty bad. This is a pretty lame movie. And it's interesting too because it's not a movie that I can't stand. Like, this is not one of them movies that I just can't sit through. Like, it's a movie that's watchable. It's a movie that's fairly entertaining. It's a movie it's one of them films that you can sit and watch and just kind of laugh at and have fun with how much it doesn't make sense, and you know, just the inconsistencies of it, and the performances and the effects and whatever. Like there's nothing overly terrible about the movie. It's just that it's a concept that wasn't really executed well. So basically how this movie starts, it actually has quite a creepy opening. Basically, this guy, who is sort of a video game beta tester, is testing the game at home. It's kind of a survival horror game where you go into a haunted house and whatnot. And yeah, he's testing out this game. It's in the middle of the night, and his character dies in the game, and it creeps him out. And then, of course, what ends up happening is he then dies himself in real life, exactly the same way that he did in the game, which is, it's actually quite a creepy opening to the movie. I actually really thought that they did a good job with the opening scene. Unfortunately, it's kind of all downhill from that point on, and it becomes just a cliche cookie cutter horror movie with some pretty poor CGI, with some terrible horror movie tropes and cliches. Like, one character will go off on their own, and then that character who goes off on their own you just know is gonna die, and it just becomes a situation of, okay, you know all these characters are gonna die, but who's gonna die first? You know, you know, it's just this is like one of those movies that they churn out multiple times a year, which are just so forgettable and formulaic. And yeah, this is basically what this movie turns out to be. It's a very formulaic movie. It's very cliche. It has all the horror movie tropes. You know, it has pretty cliche horror movie characters. And another thing about this movie which kind of bugs me is these characters in the movie are supposed to be gamers, right? But they don't come across as gamers to me, and I know that kind of seems like a generalization, but when I see these characters, just the way that they look and the way that they sound, they don't really come across as they're trying to portray themselves in the movie, if you know what I mean. And, you know, each of them sort of have their own quirk. For example, you know, one of them's like a dude that works in an office. You know, another one who's like, you know, a computer nerd who's always on his laptop, and you know, you got one who's sort of like a dude bro type type of individual. There's some girl who's like a goth. Again, again, you know, with horror movies, all the characters have to have their own little quirks. You know, to try and distinguish them and separate them from the rest of the characters. Otherwise, they would be just completely forgettable. And this is one of them movies. That's what it's like. I think you guys know what I mean. And yeah, every character is like that. They're so forgettable. You'll barely remember any of their names or any of their dialogue. Like the dialogue's so forgettable. As far as the acting in the movie, I didn't actually know who most of the actors were. I only recognised a couple of them. One of them was probably the most well-known actor that's in the movie is Adam Goldberg. He's kind of a side character. He's not in the movie much. He's just there, kind of in the background. And yeah, he ends up getting killed off pretty early. He dies pretty early in the movie, so he's kind of just a side character. Also, the kid from Malcolm in the Middle, the kid who played the lead role in that show, he's in this movie. He's kind of one of the main cast of the movie too. So yeah, those are the only two that I recognised. I did later recognise the guy who played the lawyer in that movie Unhinged that I saw recently. He's in this movie, and he's really young in this movie. I didn't actually know that was the same guy until I went back and rewatched it. So yeah, other than that, I don't know who any of the actors are. I didn't recognise any of them, and their performances were just, whatever. There was nothing really, there was no real standouts, if I'm being honest. And again, this is just one of them movies. I almost don't really know what else to say about it, because it's one of them movies that can just be on. You can watch it and just have fun with it, but it's not going to leave a lasting impression. It's just so cookie cutter, if you know what I mean. It's such a forgettable and by the books horror movie. There's really not a whole lot to it, if I'm being honest. And they could have done so much more with it. Like, they could have played on so many more like video game tropes. Like, I'm a big gamer myself, and I like survival horror games and games that have a lot of suspense and things like that. So this movie should have really been right up my alley. This really should have been my cup of tea. But unfortunately, it just seemed like the people making the movie, the writers and whatnot, didn't really seem to understand video game culture and video game tropes and stuff like that. So it was a bit of a missed opportunity, if I'm being honest. And the way that the movie ends, of course, it has to have a stupid cliche, oh, now the whole world is going to play the video game and everybody's going to be in this situation. That it's like a Blumhouse movie or something. The way that those movies have to end, like, now the whole world has to deal with this. Just a pure cliffhanger type ending. And yeah, it was just kind of forgettable. I give this movie a 5 out of 10. Maybe a 4 out of 10. I was being a bit generous. So yeah, 4 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. God bless.